What is going on, guys? Sports Rundown Diesel back at you here with another episode. And today we're going to be talking about week 7 of the NFL season and all the headlines and the storylines that are coming along with it. So let's get right into it. Obviously, we had the Cleveland Browns against the Cincinnati Bengals. Cleveland prevails with the 37-34 victory. Baker Mayfield, who struggled in the opening quarter, 0-5 and an interception to start the ball game, completes really his last 22 passes in a row. Obviously, one of those pass attempts was a spike that he was trying to stop the clock late in the fourth quarter. So he really completed his last 22 passes in a row, a 1 in 19,062 odds here. And then obviously Joe Burrow, over 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. Obviously, he threw an interception, but he's the first rookie in NFL history with 350 or more passing yards, 3+ touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in a game. He's the only rookie in NFL history to do that. Moving on to the Cowboys in Washington, I did not want to talk about this game, but I have to talk about this game. It's a divisional game, and the division is right up for grabs as the Cowboys lose 25-3 to the Washington football team. Their 142 total net yards is the fewest since the first week of the 2001 NFL season, and they have really struggled. But the ultimate storyline and the ultimate headline in this game was the NFL League's decision to not suspend Bostic for the hit on Andy Dalton. Obviously, I do believe he is going to get fined, and he will get fined a big amount of money for the hit. He was disqualified, which was the right call on the ref's decision during the game, but there should be some form of suspension. We should not be slapping the wrists of these guys who are making big amounts of money to play football. And honestly, in a league where you're trying to protect the players in the most physical sport of America's 4 major sports, and the whole COVID thing going on, it's all about protecting the players. And Andy Dalton's completely on the ground before Bostic dives and lays his whole head and shoulder into this dude. And there should be some form of suspension, whether it's 2 or 4 games, and let it be known that, and set the example like, hey, we're not going to accept this behavior on the field. But nope, let's throw salt into the wound and make it a worse situation by not suspending this guy at all. Moving on. Packers 6-0 against the Texans all time now with a 35-20 victory, as well as Deshaun Watson has been playing. The defense is not what it used to be. J.J. Watt is at the back end of his career, as well as some of these other players in the secondary and the front 7. And no one can stop Aaron Rodgers with 283 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. 196 of those passing yards and 2 of those touchdowns went to Davante Adams, who has had his second monstrous game of the most recent of weeks here. And he's going to continue, if he stays healthy, he's going to continue to light up the numbers as the season goes forward, even in the division. Moving on to the Seahawks and the Cardinals, an instant classic here in this ball game. Uncharacteristic of Russell Wilson to throw 3 interceptions after he only threw 2 interceptions through the first 5 weeks of the regular season. He threw 3, and one of them was the most costly one, leading to the Arizona Cardinals game-winning field goal at the end of overtime. And this NFC West division is completely up for grabs here. You got the Seahawks at 5-1, who was my pick to win the division. Arizona's right behind them at 5-2. You got the Rams at 5-2, and now you got San Fran at 4-3. This is the only division in the NFL where all 4 teams have a winning record. And this is going to come down to the last couple of weeks of the regular season to see who's going to win the division and who's going to probably make the wild card. We will see how it all plays out here. You may see 3 teams in the NFC, from the NFC West, make the NFC playoffs, the NFC side of the playoffs. You could see at least 3 teams make that. Moving on, obviously Russell Wilson's big day, 388, 3 touchdowns. I already talked about the interceptions, 84 rushing yards on the ground. Tyler Lockett's massive game, 15 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Outside of Tyler Lockett, the only other, I think there was like a couple of players that had 2 or 3 catches. I think Will Dissly was one of them. And Greg Olsen was another one. It was like really outside of the 15 catches you gave Tyler Lockett, the next guy down is 3 catches. And I mean, honestly, should Seattle have won this ball game? Yeah, they should have won this ball game. But at the same time, though, you give credit to the Arizona Cardinals secondary for staying tight and on top of everyone else on this football team. Not letting letting Tyler Lockett go off on you, but not letting DK Metcalf get the best of you as well. And as much as I want to keep talking about DK Metcalf, what a show-stopping run. 22, 23 miles an hour trying to get this guy down off the interception. Runs this guy down about 80 some odd yards. One of the best track downs in NFL history, in my opinion. I don't think you'll ever see that again. But with that being said, they still lost the football game. So Kyler Murray's been on fire since then. What else can I say about Kyler Murray? 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He's only thrown 1 interception in this ball game. Hopkins has been on fire, 10 out of 13 targets, 10 catches out of 13 targets, 103 yards touchdown. Christian Kirk, 5 catches, 37 yards, 2 touchdowns. I know his stats weren't great, but the 2 touchdowns is huge because that's back-to-back games. He's had 2 receiving touchdowns. So keep that in mind. And then the old reliable Larry Fitzgerald, 8 catches, 62 yards. Second player in NFL history with 1,400 receptions. The only other player with that kind of number is Jerry Rice, the all-time great. Moving on into further stuff into this ball game, Seattle lost their first game when they lead by 4 points or more at halftime. They were 59-0 when they lead by 4 points or more at halftime. 59-0. And they were leading at halftime by a good amount, but definitely by 4 points or more, and they end up losing this ball game. So you love the resiliency of this Arizona Cardinals team, and this team's got a lot to offer, not just this year, but as long as this wide receiving core stays healthy, they got a lot in the tank and are ready to go, especially with Kyler Murray at the helm. Moving on to the Jaguars and the Chargers. The Chargers win this ball game 39-29. Justin Herbert obviously has been lighting up the stat sheet, and he continues to do that. 347 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He rushes for 66 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Justin Herbert's 66 rushing yards on Sunday is the most in Chargers history by a quarterback. So he's already breaking records in team history already, and he's going to continue to do it. Obviously, we know about Keenan Allen, 10 catches, 125 yards. And it's not like the Jags played bad in this ball game, too. I mean, Gardner Minshew, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. James Robinson, their star running back, 115 rushing yards and a touchdown as well. But going back to Justin Herbert, he's the only player since at least 1970 with 1,500 or more passing yards and a passer rating of 100 or more in his first 5 career NFL games. No one else has done that since at least 1970, since at least those stats were brought into the game. So, moving on, we got the 49ers and the Patriots. Obviously, Cam Newton's job is in deep jeopardy here. If he keeps continuing to play like he was, 9 of 15, 80-something yards, 3 interceptions, just ugly performance. You can't completely blame Cam Newton because he does not have any wideouts on this team. Obviously, they did not have Sony Michel in this ball game. But with that being said, Patriots are now 2-4 for the first time since Bill Belichick's been a coach there. For 2-4 for the first time since the year 2000, where they started this magnificent run. And what else can you say about the Patriots is they're struggling. Offensively, they are completely struggling. And you can't blame the defense because the offense is not producing anything. They're not creating long drives to keep their defense a break off the field. Moving on, Bucks, Raiders. Obviously, the Bucks kind of pulled away late in this ball game with a 45-20 victory. Tom Brady is still putting up big numbers, even at his age. And this is his 12th game of 3 or more passing touchdowns since turning the age of since turning the age of 41. 12th game. In NFL history, the rest of the NFL is combined for 6 games all time. And Tom Brady's done twice as many by himself, and no one else is going to be past that. The only other player I can think of that's going to possibly be putting up numbers like this is Drew Brees. He's the only other guy I can think of, but he needs a healthy Michael Thomas before he can even say any of that. Moving on, Tom Brady's touchdown pass to Scotty Miller had 55 yards of air. Had an air time of 55 yards, had air of 55 yards, which is the longest of Tom Brady's passing since in the last 5 years. That's the longest pass by Tom Brady in the last 5 years. And obviously, with the connection to Scotty Miller, we're talking about him a lot because he's the next Julian Edelman in Tom Brady's mind, that slot receiver who has speed to beat you deep, and you see it week in and week out. And then obviously his reliable connection to Mr. Rob Gronkowski, as now Rob Gronkowski's got back-to-back receiving touchdowns in back-to-back games for the first time since week 2 and week 3 of the 2017 season. And then obviously Chris Godwin, who is now out with a left index finger injury, 9 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. And obviously, if I want to talk about anything, is Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had, less than 3 catches in the last 3 or 4 ball games, and he is not getting a lot of targets. He only really gets targets when he's in the red zone, but he had 2 catches, 28 yards in this ball game. But honestly, they didn't really need him much because they pulled away late in the defense. The defense has been on fire. They have 1 or more interceptions in the last 5 or 6 games of this season so far. And I don't see this team slowing down anytime soon. With all given outs out in the NFC with the Packers, you got the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Rams, all these teams, the 49ers, you can't forget them. With all these teams in the NFC, the Bucs by far are the team to beat in the NFC, and they're a team that's they're the most complete team in the NFC, and even in the NFL. That's why they're favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. And last but not least, the Bears versus the Rams, as the Rams win 24-10 on Monday night. Heckler's punting, it was if you could sum this game up with one player, Johnny Heckler is the player, the punter. 5 punts that were down inside the 10-yard line. And if you're an offense in the Chicago Bears, that's a very, very predictable offense in the Chicago Bears with Matt Nagy and Nick Foles. This is something that is you can't blame Nagy or Nick Foles or the offense for their starting field position. The only person you can blame is Heckler and his fabulous punts in a game of games for Johnny Heckler and the special teams unit of the Los Angeles Rams. But the Rams are 30-0 when they lead at halftime since 2017. They're the only team in NFL right now that has that kind of record, that has an unblemished record with a lead at halftime. Nick Foles has passed for as many touchdowns in the last 4 games, which is 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, passing-wise, as he did when he replaced Mitchell Trubisky in the 4th quarter against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 3. So he's got 3 touchdown passes now, which is as many as he had in the 4th quarter of the Atlanta game. There's something wrong here with this offense, but you can't blame the offense for the starting positions that they have when you're starting at the 10, the 7, the 4, the 1-yard line over and over and over again. It's hard to get the offense going, number one. And number two, it's hard to keep your defense off the field and give them some valuable rest. That's the problem. But with that being said, Nick Foles also has 1 or more interceptions in 6 straight games, which is the longest active streak in the NFL. No one else has that right now. And the biggest question with this offense is David Montgomery, their star running back. He's only rushed for 65 or more yards once this season, and that was against the Giants in Week 2, which obviously they won 17-13. But with that being said, he rushed for over 5 times. He rushed for over 65 yards 5 times last year. The Bears are 5-1 when he rushes for over 65 or more yards in a game. Give him the ball, guys. Stop being predictable and giving him the ball 10, 15 times. He's only had like 3 games in his NFL career where he's actually rushed the ball 20 or more times. Like literally, he hasn't rushed the ball 20 or more times this season. He did it 2 or 3 times last year, and they won all 3 of those games. So, actually, no, they won 2 out of those 3 games. They did lose 1 of those games last season, now that I think about it. But give Montgomery the ball. Trust this guy running the football. He's only rushing the ball 15. He's only giving them 15 carries a game, and they really don't have Tariq Cohen. It's like, you got to give this guy a chance to run the football. But is Nick Foles' job in jeopardy right now? It absolutely is, because he has struggled all season long. And, well, outside of the game against Atlanta, the game against Atlanta is an exception because Atlanta's defense sucks. That defense is so bad. Moving on, Nick Foles has struggled here. They haven't had an offensive touchdown in 2 games straight, and it's like back-to-back games. And this is not characteristic of the Chicago's team. But with that being said, they're 5-1, and they're right in position to win this division behind the Packers. And it's like, but the Packers are right there with them. Obviously, I'm not even going to talk about Detroit, and I'm not going to talk about the Vikings, which has been the biggest of letdowns, them letting go of Stephon Diggs and company, etc. Moving on, but it's like the Bears have to get this going offensively. If their offense gets going, you could argue that they have a complete team as well, but offensively, there are a lot of questions to be answered as we are reaching the halfway point of the regular season here. But thank you guys so much for your time. Stay tuned for more NFL news. Obviously, Week 8's coming up. Obviously, there's more stuff to talk about, whether it's NBA offseason, speculations on who's going where. Is Giannis going to find a new home in the NBA? We will all find out. Teron Lue's the new coach of the Clippers. Doc Rivers is moving. Like, there's people moving all over the place. I will get to a video in the near future. But thank you guys again so much for your time. If you haven't already, please leave a like and subscribe already. If you haven't already, thank you guys so much for your time. I will see you guys all in the next one. Deuces.